What's going on, everybody? It's the one and only One Qua, and we are back once again with another how to build tutorial. This week I'm joined by Pluto, and we're going to be teaching you how to build a redwood forest. So let's hop over to Pluto and get started.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back once again. For this video, we're going to start out with the general project overview, and we'll be looking at some of our more general processes on how to build a redwood forest and really give it that forest feel. To help us plan this build, we decided to reference actual images. These are the three we used. There's also plenty of real-life nature around to take in. Both sources can help us decide what plants to make in the start and what kind of atmosphere we want later on. We are going to create a forest that has a realistic environment that includes trees, plants, rocks, and terrain. In order to create a natural feeling forest, we are going to also need to consider where we are placing all of our plants and how we are coloring the terrain. Both color and placing will be vital parts in creating a rich atmosphere. In order to create the overall atmosphere, we are going to need to combine the size, shape, and color of the terrain with the size and style of the plants we made, all with the semi-restricted plant placement to bring our redwood forest to life in Minecraft. And without further ado, let's jump right into it with Mr. Qua.
The first assets we created were the trees. These can be created by hand or with commands by building the root of the tree first, then using a wireframe to outline the trunk. From here, you can fill the gaps with wood and build the branches outwards. As for the leaves, grab two types of leaf variants and place them around the branches. We created three types of plants, all of which can be created with commands or by hand. Generally, start at the bottom of each plant and build the stems upwards and outwards. Add on any leaves that are needed and color them accordingly. For a breakdown of these techniques, check out our redwood trees and plants tutorial here. Our final assets were rocks. We used the wireframe method again, but floating in the air. We filled in the gaps with stone and added soul sand on top of the rock. This created a rough ball shape for us to use later on. For the terrain, we decided to create a square plot of land with a length of 250 blocks and a height of around 100 blocks. This left us with enough room to add in the trees later without hitting the height limit. We also decided to have the terrain follow a general descent from one corner to the other. For this size of terrain, we decided to use voxel sniper. This process could also be done by hand, although it may take quite a while longer. Start with a lift brush and a large brush size to form the general slope of the terrain. Then, lift up smaller hills and cliffs within the terrain. While doing this, continue to change your brush size to be smaller as the details become smaller. If there are rough areas, you can use the blend ball brush to smooth the terrain. Be careful not to over smooth, as this makes the terrain feel unnatural. We also decide to let a stream flow through the terrain. To add this feature, use the lift brush on a small brush size, as small as you want your stream to be, to push the blocks downwards away from you. This creates an indent for the water to follow. Keep in mind how gravity affects water, so make sure it continues to flow downwards. Try to find a lower valley for the stream to flow through. To color the stream, use a block you will not use in the final terrain, such as sponge and the voxel depth brush, and a mask to paint the sponge one block deep over the stream. This is where the water will be. After that, select the stream with World Edit and replace one block above the sponge with sponge to give the stream a depth of 2 blocks. You may have to touch this up by hand to make it smooth and stay contained within the indent you created for the water. As for coloring the terrain, this could be done by hand, but we decided to use an angle replace command to change specific ranges to polished diorite, stone, podzol, dirt, and soul sand. After this, we used World Edit brushes to surround the podzol with green wool and then grass. After this, the terrain is complete.
Now for the good part, putting it all together. To paste the first few plants in, we use the classic selection, then copy, then fly over and paste without air, occasionally also rotating them 90 degrees. For the rest of them, we use the schematic brush. The commands for this brush varies among servers, so we won't spend too much time on it. In general, you start by creating schematics of each plant, and then use the schematic brush command that binds to a tool to place the schematics. The brush can also be used to randomly rotate and flip each schematic as you paste them. Now, no matter which technique you use to paste things in, this is where you're going to be focusing closely on the placement of the plants and trees. For the smaller plants, we decided to place them close around and in the green grassy parts, trying not to put them too far into the dirt or brown areas. We followed this pattern for all of the smaller plants. Then, for the trees, we lifted our restrictions a little, but still tried to put them in groupings while mainly avoiding all pure stone and cliff parts. To help build the overall atmosphere, we used the trees we already made, removed the leaves, and rotated the trunk in order to have a fallen trees. Once we rotated them, we made more roots at the bottom of the trees so they wouldn't look unnaturally flat. To rotate these sideways, we select the tree, then copy it at the bottom and do / rotate 0 space 90 space 0, which will rotate it around the x-axis. We'll want to place these fallen trees sparingly and try to find a place that the fallen tree might have been and a direction for them to have fallen in, where it still feels natural. We found a couple of spots, my favorite being the upper corner, where we made a tree fall over a nice ledge.
In the barren areas, try to add in some inanimate details such as rocks. Since these objects are generally round, they would roll if not stuck deeply in the ground. This means they should be primarily placed in low and flat areas. In addition, these are good background objects that break up colors such as the large dark spots behind trees. For the ground foliage, we decide to add in small details such as dead bushes, mushrooms, wood buttons, and grass. These can easily be added by selecting the terrain and replacing the air above blocks with the smallest percentage of each ID and the rest air. Start with the G mask of air, which prevents you from replacing solid blocks. For example, over grass and green wool we added tall grass and ferns. Over the dirt we added the dead bushes, brown mushrooms, and wood buttons while still using the G mask. For the buttons, since we didn't want them to be overwhelming, we used another replace command afterwards to replace half of the buttons with air. Remember to first turn off the G mask.
For the leaves on the ground, we just use our BR sphere command with 10% leaves. This time we went with non-decaying spruce leaves and 90% air. When placing these leaves, try to only put them under things or in wide open areas that felt barren, keeping in mind that if it's too open, the leaves might not make sense there. We decided after doing all this that there still wasn't quite enough trees, so we went in and pasted a few more around to give it an overall deeper forest feel with thicker trees. This is also where we added in some trees without leaves to give it a more overall natural feel, since most forests don't have every tree with leaves. And finally, cleaning up is probably the most important step, especially if you use a lot of commands. The main things we had to clean up were the steep parts that didn't get stone on them, and then adding white stone to contrast that. We also had to go back in and fix a lot of the tree's roots where they pasted in floating over a bunch of blocks. Once you've cleaned up and fixed any parts that look off or weird, I'm now happy to inform you that you've just built yourself an entire forest! Congratulations!
I hope you have enjoyed this video. Remember to check out our previous videos as well as suggest new ideas for future content. We'd love to see your builds on our Discord server, the link for that will be in the description. If you liked the video, make sure to hit the thumbs up and turn on notifications, and we will see you in the next video.